Grand day, gems and jewels. How is everyone on this new year? Welcome, gems and jewels. I am your host, Corinthia Peoples, and this is Power in My Pivot. Happy all things new and continued. Power in My Pivot is a live broadcast where we discuss how the extraordinary becomes extraordinary, and how in our own right, through the power of pivoting, through the power of turning and changing and moving in our lives from the prescribed direction of mass societal roles and conditions. This is a show for men and women, kings and queens, princesses and princes. This time has come for us to control our own narrative and to remember how we really and who we really are, and to set the stage through leading by example. On this edition of Power in My Pivot, we will have a discussion with King MOULAH, who will eloquently give rise to the charge that the Native African and the African American that we're one people, and that he feels that it's necessary for us to unify. I share that charge with him, that it is time for us to unify as a people. MOULAH will also share with us details of his journey of being in the music industry and his lessons and mentality, if you will, in growing his compassion and his comparisons. That has awakened him in the music industry culturally, and how culturally he's awakened, and it's influenced his pivot of the disconnection amongst African Americans and Africans. You know, this conversation is super for me, because it's a conversation that I've always wanted to have. And now that we have the platform where we're able to have these conversations, this is the time, because we're going to have a truth conversation that's going to dispel many myths. Okay, so stay tuned. I'll be right back. All right. Yes. Okay, so we're going to just dig right into it, right? So I want to welcome everyone to the room again. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Power in My Pivot is a discussion where we're going to unpack. We're going to unpack the details of our pivot, right? Our transformation, whether that was voluntarily, circumstantially, or just by sheer survival. We've had to pivot, we've had to change. It's a talk of our soul's journey and our evolution as humans. All right, so I want to welcome all to the room. I want you to know that this is an interparticipatory discussion. So feel free to comment and leave messages. I have some people in the room. Beautiful. I am King's daughter. Yes, she is in the house. Welcome, sis. So glad to have you, Zanetta. Beautiful necklace. Stop teasing. I'll put up her comment. Stop teasing us. Happy New Year. Beautiful. Greetings, Zanetta. We can't wait. I am King's daughter TV. Yes. We got the signs. Oh, yes. It is about to be a wonderful show. We have Miss Ben Yasrel. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Shalom, family, one love. Give thanks. Yes. This conversation is definitely interparticipatory. So we welcome all comments. You want to ask any questions, have any comments around the discussion, the comment feed is there. I'm going to be looking at it from from time to time, I'm going to open it up towards the end, towards the latter part of the show, so we can actually go into it, so we can unpack this thing, because it is phenomenal. So, welcome to the room. Please like at this time, like, share, and subscribe. For those who've already done so, I appreciate it. Like the YouTube channel, Corinthia Peoples. Subscribe, give us a thumbs up, heart. That would be so awesome. It helps the algorithms with us in airing the show and getting the content out to you. So without further ado, I want to give you some of who King MOULAH is, his bio, right? King MOULAH is from Mauritania, which was a part of the old empire of Mali. He is part Mauritanian, Malian, and Senegalese. King MOULAH migrated to New York City in 2001, where he became a sound engineer, and he founded his record label, Kingdom Inc. Records. King MOULAH has a love and a desire for feeding the people physically, his good Senegalese and African food. He has a reputation for opening his home to friends in need, and he also has a reputation of lending a brotherly hand. MOULAH's mission is to touch people, however way he can, whether that be through his music, through his food, artwork, his art as a whole, right? Whether in the moment, in a season, or in a lifetime. He's open for the road and for the challenge to touch us all. And he feels that his work in this life is to be an example of the impossible. He has a story of conquering, of being victorious in what he's wanting to manifest for his life, and he's a living example of how he's manifested. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you and bring into the stream King MOULAH.
Hey, hello,
Hey
hello,
there.
hello. What an introduction. I was like, are you talking about me? Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm honored
Absolutely.
and blessed.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure to have you. It is a pleasure to have you. You know, this is revolutionary. Truth is revolutionary. The African and the African American coming together is revolutionary. Even just by us having these conversations. Yes, we're known to marry each other, right? We're known the African American, the African is known to get married.
Real quick.
Real quick.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is a new era. Like, I feel like the past few years, 4 years, been an era of awakening. It's been a lot of awakening happening in different zones of earth, at different levels, at different mentalities. And yes, it's amazing for us to be sitting on a platform and to discuss, this an African American and an African who's been in America for a while. And I feel like I can't wait. The discussion will be great. And yes, thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So, we're going to dig into this because we got an hour to dig in. So everyone who's watching, we're going to hold you for an hour. We ask for your attention for 1 hour to have this conversation, and then we're going to leave it because I respect everyone's time. And I know life is busy. So we don't have a lot of time, and time is moving so fast. I mean, like, geez, someone said that we're in a quickening. I believe that because, 2020, it was full of interesting events, but it was also full of blessings. And it went by so fast. Do you think it went by fast, MOULAH?
Yes, I do. I think it went by quickly. It's like it started off, with challenges, and then we all had to change our ways of lives, whether we like it or not. It's a lot of things that changed in such a short period of time. And right here, we're celebrating 2021 already, and 2020 is not behind us, but I feel like, it's still present, and we're going to use that energy, the blessings that came with the year, and like to use that momentum into
Yes, and
2021.
still continue to catapult it. So
Mm-hmm.
let's unpack this. A
Okay.
question that I've been asked from a few people.
Mm-hmm.
What is the narrative and the story behind you calling yourself King Moolah?
King MOULAH, you see my
With
crown,
the
right?
crown, and I see the crown.
You
Yes.
see- Okay. Well,
Sometimes we gotta just crown ourselves, huh, Moolah?
absolutely. Well, it started off with, I'm an artist. I'm an international artist. I started doing music at the age of 14, 15. And from a very young age, we always had this revolutionary mentality. And I always believed that, we were all kings and queens, and I always grew up with that kings and queens mentality, kings and queens. It's like we kings and queens, even though we don't have a kingdom yet, or we don't have, a crown or anything. So that's where the mentality came from. We all kings and queens, and it's a mentality thing. Now, that mentality led me to really like looking into my ancestry. In America, you guys do the ancestry.com. So in Africa, I have to call my grandfather, my grandma, my mom, auntie, and then try to figure out where my lineage is. So my father is from Mali. My last name is Jakite Kaba. Kaba signify my tribe. I'm a Kabalanke. So the name of my village is Nyoro, it's in Mali. And just like this, like a lot of people won't know what it means, but I'm saying that to say that I can trace my roots back to Mansa Musa, who a lot of people know as one of the richest men alive, who was the king of the empire of Mali in the 13th, 14th century.
Mm-hmm.
So I can actually say that I feel kingly in my DNA, but it all started with a mentality, and the mentality is that we kings and queens. My partner, uh, I am King's daughter. That's her name. I am King's daughter. I like that name instead of just saying I'm a princess. But because
Right.
that's what it translates to. But
It does.
it's like she's a queen, and you are a queen, and we come across a lot of people who don't carry the crown, but they kings and queens. They might not even know it yet, but we are here to let them know, hey, we kings and queens. So I started calling myself King MOULAH. I changed my name, my artist name. I used to go by Mr. MOULAH. So when I came about my kingship, like King MOULAH is what I want to go by. The name of my company is called Kingdom Inc. Record, because that's my kingdom. And then everybody is my people. So I really can justify why I can call myself a king. I went and got a crown, and I try to live like a king, even though I'm not a rich man yet.
There we go. So it's all back to your roots, because there's a we're having an honest conversation, right? So there's a thing amongst African American women
Mhm.
where we say that the African man that approaches us, he always say, I'm a king in my country. I'm a king in my village. I'm a king. So that the running joke is that every Native African man tells us he's a king. But in your case, you are specifically saying, I have Mali blood in me, and I can trace my roots back to Mansa Musa, who is known in history books and in history to be one of the greatest and the richest men in the world, who his origination was the Malian Empire. And you can trace your roots back to that particular time
Absolutely.
and place. That's what we're saying.
And to go back to that running joke, that comes from that movie Coming to America, the original Coming to America, because we saw
No, it
that
doesn't come
movie.
from the movie. It comes from real life.
No.
Like,
I'm saying
that's
why.
the narrative.
Yeah, no. Why when the African brothers come here and they start telling all the African Americans I'm a king, where that comes from?
Oh,
It came from the movie. We watched that movie, and then Coming to America, he came, he was a king, and then he ended up getting a beautiful woman. So it's like, oh yeah, I'm a king. So it's just like, but a lot of times the words will lead to it. Like if you say you're a king, sooner or later you have to do king stuff. You can't just call yourself king. If you want it to be a real thing, then you're gonna have to do king things, and then that will turn you into a king.
that's right. That's right. I like that. I like that, Moolah. You have to start to do king things, and that will turn you into the king that you say you are. And even in our households, we refer to our men as our king. The conscience, the woman who represents kingdomship and queendomship, right? We will refer to our men as our king. So yeah, our king has to do kingly things. Absolutely.
And then the man loses that statue if if your woman treats you like a king and calls you the king and you don't do king things. It's not gonna last 3-6 months. You're gonna lose that stat, because if you want to keep being the king, you have to do king things. Because after a while, if you're doing bullshit, then in her mind, subconscious, like, why am I calling this man a king? He don't, it's like it's not, you don't match. So go hand in hand.
That's right. That's right. You're so right. I'm glad you know that. I'm glad you know that. I wish more men knew that, or say that they know it, So, Moullah,
yeah,
you are a father, you are a brother, you are a son, you are a friend. What's been your most difficult lesson that you've had to learn in wearing all those hats?
Whew. I think the most difficult lesson comes from the hat that I'm not wearing currently, which is a husband. In my journey, I found it easy to be a friend, a father, a brother. I don't know why, but those things always came natural to me. But finding my queen actually have been a bigger challenge for me. I've been married twice, and in both those marriages, I've learned a great deal. My first marriage was to a woman from Jamaica who grew up in America, and my second one from African Americans from Alabama down south. So it's been a challenge because I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. Like, this has been the hardest thing for me to figure out, for me to learn. Is like how to find my match, how to find my queen, how to be the man. I put a lot of the responsibility on myself, the man, as I should, because it's like, if I haven't found the queen yet, it's like, what am I not doing right? So that's been the hardest thing for me. Now, as far as being a father, it's been a challenge, not difficult, but I would say it's been the most challenging thing I had to do, because I inherited my beautiful children, who are, my daughter is 14 now and my son is 11. Shout out to Aisha and Musa. And then I had them since Musa was 10 months old, and Aisha was about 4. So I raised them as a single dad. It's been challenging, but it's been also the biggest blessing of my life, because I've learned so much from it. I've matured from it. I've learned patience and how to have a different understanding about different things, including understanding why their mother hasn't been present in their life. And I look at them, they're beautiful children, they deserve the word in my mind. And why did they have to grow up without a mother in their life present? Their mother calls them every day, they talk, they have a good relationship with their mom. But just like when you go through them difficult moments in life, when you're a single parent and you're wondering, you're always going to come to ask yourself, or ask this question, why? You might say, God, why? Or why do I have to go through this? Why is this so difficult? But you just have to. It's a blessing. It's like, it's a challenge and a blessing. And you have been chosen. And I always look at it like, I was chosen instead of the mother. So maybe because I was the better parent, I don't know. Maybe because there was something that was there for the children to learn. And I remember when I was with their mother, the dynamic wasn't good. And I believe that if they would have grown up in that dynamic, it would have messed them up a little bit mentally. So the fact that something was removed from the equation is just to allow the kids to have a balanced life. And I know, especially in America, there's a pandemic of people not growing up with their fathers, which I believe leads to a lot of higher incarceration rate. But sometimes it's the challenge. We can also see that a president, like Obama became president, he was raised by a single parent. So it's like, we just have to find the balance.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting, because that's a good segue into the dynamics between the African and the African American, right? And even like you said, your first wife was from Jamaica. So there's like these different dynamics, right? Another thing that the African American discuss when we talk, the women automatically say that African men are or are aggressive, that they're aggressive. I personally was married to an African man. And I'm African American. I have, of course, been dated and been in love with an African American man. What I've discovered is that all men are aggressive. It don't matter what culture. There's a standard for all men. Every man wants to be respected, whether he African, African American, white, Latina, Jewish, French, no matter. It's a human thing. Every man and every woman wants to be respected. However, there is some dynamics because there is like a back narrative, like, oh, this man doesn't do this, or this man is to that, or this man is to this. So this is bringing in this whole dynamics between man and woman. What do you feel the most, man and woman, and the men, you know, African man and African American man, right? And then there's the dynamics between the African American woman and the African woman, right? So, in terms of, in your opinion, what was the common denominator between your Jamaican wife and your African American wife? What was the common denominator?
The common denominator is that they're all women. That's the common denominator, to be honest. Like, there is a narrative where I'm from. I remember when I wanted to marry the first time with the African American. My father was alive back then, and he opposed it at first. You know, I called him. I was here. He's in Africa. I remember my mother was here at the time, so I spoke to my mother. My mother was okay. My mother was the more open-minded. My dad, he's from Mali, and he's a Soninke. For those who know, Soninke is like one of the most complicated, like, people you can come across. Like, they only marry among themselves. They're very protective with their bloodline and things like that. So that's my father's side of the family. So my father, he had a not a big problem, but when I called him, hey dad, I found somebody I want to marry. I'm like 25 at the time, 26, and you know, and he asked me, first thing he asked me, where is she from? He didn't need to know anything. Where is she from? I said, she's from Jamaica. He said, Jamaica, I don't know, son, it's kind of far. So, you know, like, that's the mentality of the old people. So he was like, it's far. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm 25, I'm in New York. So, you know, I'm the new school, the new mindset and everything. I'm not even thinking about, you know, those things at that moment. Like, I love this woman. She loves me. Let's get married, you know?
Yeah.
And so my dad was like, I don't know, because, you know, like, you from Africa, she's from Jamaica. We different people. And I'm afraid that it'd be complicated. You know, I think you should marry somebody who is from where you're from, because it'll be some understanding, and you'll have a better chance of success in your marriage. And I'm like, sure, man, dad, you know, like, this is the one I want. I love her. She loves me. You know, at that time, you're not trying to hear anything else. I love this woman. She loves me. Let's get it on. So, and then he was like, no, he won't give his blessing. So, and then I was like, okay, you know, I won't marry without your blessing, because, you know, like, where I'm from, that's like, just like, some values are just strong, like the dynamics. Like, over here, an African American man might just like, you know, like, if my parents are with it or not, I'm marrying you, you know. So with that situation, is more like, I can't marry you without the blessing of my parents. But then I told my dad, I said, look, you know, I understand what you're trying to do, but also you have to understand, you have to give me the opportunity, because I'm 25, I'm here, I'm a man, you know, and I would like to settle in marriage instead of just sleeping around with women. You know, I feel like my energy is being tainted, you know, and I'm not going to do it without your blessing, but just understand that that's what you're holding off. You know, like, while I'm not married, I'm not going to stop sleeping with women. So that's not good for me. And then a week later, he calls me and he gave me his blessing. You know, so now that's the story of how I got married the first time. But the similarities with the woman is like, look, woman wants to be talked to how they wants to be talked to, and wants to be loved how they want to be loved. It's like, I learned through both my marriages that facts don't really matter. If the woman feels some type of way about something, how she feels matters more than the fact, even if what caused that feeling is not true. Like, I used to be too focused on, like, what's wrong with you? Well, I feel bad about what's making you feel this way. Well, because I feel like you don't care about this, but I do care. So I show my care about this and this and that, instead of tendering to the feeling, to that, I'm worried too much about the fact that she's feeling some type of way about something that is not accurate. So I learned that about my different relationships. And I also learned that when you love a woman, she wants to be loved a certain way, and you have to learn that. You have to learn how to love a woman a certain way, not like just love. I love you how I love you, like I love you how I love you, and that's the best way I can love you. And sometimes it's like, no, but this is how I want to be loved. That's why the aggressiveness comes in. Like, well, African men are aggressive, or all men are aggressive, but maybe it comes out more with us because of, like, there's a language barrier. Sometimes we can't express ourselves as much as we want to with all the words, so we just use the little bit of vocabulary we have and say no, and then no is aggressive. No is aggressive, but no is the most direct way we know how to say no, instead of like, baby, maybe we should, like, after you learn the culture and the language, now you're comfortable, like, you know what, maybe we can, and have, it's a language barrier, a cultural barrier, but aggressiveness, like you said, all men are aggressive. They want to be respected.
To a degree, yes.
Yeah, and
So
women.
I have another question for you, which brings in the whole dynamics between African and African Americans. Do you feel that ultimately, so we know that let me just cut to the chase. We know that a lot of African men tend to marry, whether it's American women or British, from Europe, whatever, right? For papers. And ultimately, an African man ultimately will end up with his native woman, with a woman from his country. And then there are some situations and some phenomena where that does not happen, where the African man and the African American woman they end up being together. What is that? What is that piece? Can you help us understand why does the African man always end up with his native woman, but go to the African American for the paper? And can you kind of dispel?
Yes, absolutely. Like in Wolof, they say, "Ku xamul fo jëm nga dellu fo jóge." Alright, that's a Wolof proverb saying, if you don't know where you're going, you need to go back where you come from. So we get lost. You know what I mean? So right now, I could very easily fall into that because I got married here twice. I didn't marry somebody from where I'm from. And in the back, in my subconscious, it's playing. It's like, maybe that's why it didn't work. Maybe that's why it didn't work. Maybe that's why it didn't work. So I tried it. And then most of us who go back to our woman, it's like, we try. Sometimes you try a white woman, and then the cultural difference is too much sometimes. But then when you go back to somebody who's where you're from, it's easy. So sometimes it's just the easy route. For those of us who decide to marry outside of our culture, it's like it takes courage. It takes a lot. Like, it's a lot of work. It's like every time I get into a relationship like that, I already know it's going to be an uphill battle because they got to learn about things that, how things that I lived in that matters to me, things that are really important to me, and I have to learn what is important to her. And we're hoping that they're not going to clash. Because as we getting to know each other and as we developing this relationship, we don't really know. And then we come to the point like, by the way, when we have kids, like they're all gonna have to be Muslim regardless. So that's a big thing that needs to come up. You know, like, and then usually it comes up later after feelings are already involved. And now we have to make these decisions. And then it's a lot of little things. It's like, well, like when I marry you, this and this gotta happen. But it's like, because we don't just meet somebody and start talking about marriage right away. So we have to, build the relationship. So by the time we get to talk about important things, it's like we already knee deep in it. And then it's hard for us to go back. Sometimes we just go in. We don't, a lot of the things we might not be okay with, but we're already too far in, and then there is a challenge of both sides, the African American side and the African side, both will tell you were the wrong person. And then now you knee deep and you're seeing some challenges. You don't want to fall back. You don't want to be wrong. You want to go all the way in. And then when it ends in a divorce, and then in the back of your mind, it's like, maybe I should just go marry somebody from back home. So sometimes it's that,
Interesting. So this is the thing. That's very interesting. Thank you for being honest. What I heard you say and what the takeaway is that we don't ask questions. There's not a lot of conversation happening before we hit the sheets,
Mm-hmm.
before we start talking about,
Anything.
all this emotional stuff we have, and whether we're insecure, whether we're both lonely, or whether we're both, it's time for me to get a man, it's time for me to get a husband, it's time for me to have a wife. We're connected to our own agendas.
And are we on the same page?
But
Like, I just got
same
divorced,
page,
right?
that isn't
I just got divorced in February, and then I meet people and stuff, but I'm not looking for another wife right now. And then some of the people I meet are on that page. They're looking for somebody to be with, and I just let them go. Like, we're not on the same page, and they don't understand. Like, why don't you like me? It's not a like thing. I'm trying to save you from a situation. We don't have the same goals. Like, I can just act like I have the same goals and move along, but I'm just gonna be using you and wasting your time. So sometimes the honesty don't work. And then, like, sometimes I'll be like, I was talking to my sister is visiting me, so she was telling me this morning, like, because I wake up and I look fresh every day. She's like, damn, like, it's hard for you to have a wife because she got to wake up and compete with this, because you wake up and you get dressed up every day. I said, like, what? I said, you guys have makeup, jewelry, all this stuff you can do to yourself, braiding. I don't even have hair. And then you were like, nah, this is like, if a woman don't find this challenging to where she want to look nice every day, like, she's like, yeah, and you cook, you clean, and like, yeah, I do all that. And then she's like, that's why you can find a woman. Like, in my mind, I'm like, wait, that should be opposite. A woman should see me and be like, oh, he got half of the stuff, so it should be easy for me to just come and, slide in. But it's true. Like, it's like woman comes in and they get comfortable, you know what I mean? Because I cook, I clean, I'm a good dad. I raised my kids for 10 years. So it's like, I don't really need one, but I would like to have one. But it's not a need. It's not like, and then I was talking to my first wife. She comes here and visit the kids sometimes. And we had a very interesting conversation, and she was telling me that, there is no room. You don't make room for the woman. That's what she told me, that I don't make room for the woman. So I was like, that stayed with me for a while, because it's like, okay, how do I make room for the woman? She was like, well, because when the woman comes here, right, in your house, you got everything set up, everything is done, everything, she don't have to do anything. I said, yes, but that doesn't mean that don't do anything. Like, I would like to have a partner, somebody who will see me sweep and go grab the mop, somebody who will see me, I don't want somebody who will see me clean every day and just be comfortable. Oh, he's cleaning, so I don't have to, and then why is that my fault? Because I'm doing the right thing. So now I'm supposed to just be like, yeah, when the woman come, don't clean, don't cook, don't, like, I'm like, that's just me not being me then. Like, like, I'll have to change who I am in order to find someone. So those are discussions I have with poor people sometimes.
Yeah, I get, wow. So what I'm hearing is that, see, and this is a myth dispel. We're dispelling a myth right now. So a lot of women think, and true enough, it may be the odds are higher and there are more women raising children alone, needing men. But here it is, we're having you say, I'm a single dad and I'm going through some of the same challenges as a single mom would be going through. This is what I heard. I also heard you say about changing and having to change in order to, like, get someone that you feel is your queen, your mate, your level, your compatibility. That's really interesting. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's understanding the challenges. Like, a woman, like, I always look at it like, okay, you've been with me and you've been with me, so you know me. Because when I'm with someone, I show you my full color and everything. So if you've been with me, you know me. And it's been 10 years since since we divorced. And then she was like, you the same, you haven't changed. I'm like, because it's like, I'm mature, but like my core is really truly the same. And it's like, but with marriage and with women, we have to come to understand and acceptance of what, it's not even about what we've done wrong, but where the challenge came from the other party. It's like, we over here, living our life, not understanding that somebody else will come. And then a woman tell me this too, you're very intimidating. I'm like, okay, like, how do I not be intimidating? What do I do? It's like,
Wow.
I don't know, you're just intimidating. Like, so when we around you, it's
Wow.
like, everything we do, we have to think about 10 times twice, because you there's a lot of things you do right, and it's like you don't have too much tolerance for, when we mess up. So it's something I have to work on, because it's like, I feel like I put a lot of people on my standard when I have to be more understanding and allow people to be who they are and not put such a high standard for them to meet, you know, and things like that. So it's a constant work. It's like every day when we work on, we should work on ourselves, like power in your pivot. You know, I just turned 42 and I love to learn new things. Like there's a new instrument called the kora that I just purchased and I'm learning. I got a new saxophone that I'm learning. I love to get Rubik's cubes and learn, and that's a way of me to teach my children that hey, you can learn new things no matter at what age. You can do what you love no matter at what age, you know. And but at the same time, do the right thing. You have the choice to do the right thing, you know.
Right.
And that's
Right.
one thing we need to teach our children. Not teach them, don't do something because daddy or mommy told you not to do it because it's wrong. No, like I want you to understand that there is right and wrong, and that you have the ability within you to know right from wrong, and you have the ability to choose right every time, you know. And that's the mission.
This is interesting how this took a turn on this relationship
Yeah,
dynamic.
no, right. You have more questions for me, right? We can
I
go to the next
do.
questions.
I do have another question for you.
Okay.
So, just to pivot you into the Exodus project.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're working with I Am King's daughter, a wonderful, beautiful spirited woman who has who and you and she are launching the Exodus project,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Does tell me about that narrative, because does the Native African and the African American this Exodus project, you're seeing the two of us merge
Mm-hmm.
in a way and unify in a way. Can you speak on
Yes.
how you envision the African American and the African merging mentally first and possibly physically? Because your call is for us to exit either mentally or is it a physical, like you're saying, like,
It
oh,
starts with mental, and then at the end we are gonna have to physically get there, you know.
okay,
So
talk
yeah,
about that.
let me tell you a little bit about this Exodus project. Marina, her name Marina is I Am King's daughter,
Yeah,
right? That's my partner. She's wonderful. She's in Paris, so she came up with the show, the Exodus
yeah, we're gonna have
Exodus
her on
project.
too. We're gonna have her on.
Yes, yes. She, you know, she's interesting. She's awesome. I like how her mind works and how she thinks. So she called because I'm friends with her brother. Her brother lives here. So she knows her brother just introduced us, and she calls me one day, was telling me about the show she wanted to do, and I was telling her about I believe that everybody need to go. All black people belong in Africa. I've been in America 19 years now, and I believe that strongly, especially in 2020 when I've seen so many injustices and I've seen so many black people that have influence, you know, have something to say. But then it struck me that not one person said, let's go back. And then I went back and did some digging and looked into history. Marcus Garvey was really the last movement that made that happen. And then my mind just started running, and I started thinking about Liberia. Liberia was founded by like about 200 people that came from North Carolina. They came to Africa in about 1945 or something like that. And then in 1952, Liberia became the first country in Africa to become independent. And that became a chain reaction. By 1960, 8 years, every single country in Africa became independent. Like, even though it's a whole nother discussion about that independence, because, you know, I gotta talk about it's not a real independence, but, you know, it's just like, to me, it shows me the influence. It influenced African American. When African Americans and American Africans get together, something great happened. So in my mind, I started thinking like, okay, why is it that nobody's really talking about it? Why it hasn't been a movement? Like right now in 2020, we should have a movement of thousands of people. And I'm talking about a mass migration. The Exodus Project is not about one family. It's like really like we're going to get together and move back together collectively. We got to find the correct land, the correct country with with the correct, you know, people in power, because Africa is complicated. So now we decided to do a weekly podcast every Thursday that you can find on YouTube. Actually, tomorrow she's going to air the one we did. We had Corinthia. You know, we had the honor of having Miss Corinthia on our show
Yeah,
2 days ago.
pleasure.
we pre-record our shows and then air them on YouTube. So you
Yeah,
can go
it'll be available on YouTube at
at
I
I
am.
Am King's Daughter TV or Good TV. The
Yeah,
link will be down here probably, but she's gonna air that tomorrow, the one you on. We just decided to commit into talking and sharing information, and I realized that the reason why there is a disconnect between African American and the African is that misinformation. We didn't have the correct information before we came to America, so people who are in America don't really have the correct information about Africa until they actually go, or until I used to say this all the time. Like I noticed that in America, unless you have an African friend, you don't know Africa.
right.
You have to have an African friend that you talk to, that you ask questions to, that can give you a little insight. But based on internet and TV, it was all the wrong information. So what we're doing right now is correcting that by giving people the right information, letting
Yeah.
you know that Africans, we look up to African Americans. When we look at TV and we see the Michael Jordans and LeBrons and the Oprahs and the P Diddy's, and like in every industry you see the African Americans, and that's what attracted us to America. It wasn't no John Wayne and no Elvis and none of that. None of that. That's not what they used to sell America. So what, like, we look up to African Americans, and we believe that we get together. It doesn't even have to be all of us. We just need a few hundred people. We over here, we can worry about, oh no, but not everybody gonna come. Yeah, it's fine. If we get a couple of thousand people, we'll be fine. But today, if somebody like LeBron was to say, I believe we need to go to Africa and I have a plan, he has enough means and enough everything to make it happen. And I
Yeah.
believe millions of people will follow him. And
Yeah.
this is a movement, really, we're talking about African American, but it's really a movement that includes all Black people from all over the world. Because when I sit down today and I look, there is no place where on earth, there is no place where this is the safe haven of Black people. You can
Mhm.
just go over here and you're not going to be prosecuted. You have the same right as everybody. This is your place where you run. We don't have that. But we have a continent that belongs to us that we do not control. And I always say, you can't keep your house clean unless you're there. I can't clean up my
Unless
house
you're there.
unless I'm there. So
Right.
that's why mentally we're going to have to pivot, and then eventually the pivot is going to have to be physical. So this is like a 10 to 20-year project. It's not a project that's
Mhm.
going to
Mhm.
happen now. Right now,
So,
the first, go ahead.
sorry about that.
Hmm.
So, in that,
Hmm.
there's a relational piece, right? In
Hmm.
terms of us unifying
Hmm.
the African American and the Native African. I'm going to bring in a comment from the stream. This is from Alicia. Um, and she's saying the average African American is misinformed or uninformed on what really exists in Africa. Now, that right? So I've been to Africa. I've been twice. And I stayed in an extended amount of time each time. It was more than a month. It was 2 to 3 months each time that I went. So yes, that is very true. Can you speak to the comforts of America and what could some of the challenges be for African Americans to? Because let me just say this: there is a huge repatriate community in Ghana. There's a lot of us that have went to Ghana, built our homes, will never come back,
Hmm.
um, taken our children, sowed our economics, helped to fund and increase the strength of economics in Ghana due to the Kwame Nkrumah
Hmm.
Pan-African movement with he and W.E.B. Du Bois and Malcolm X and such as that, where there's dual citizenship. So yes, there are some uncomfortabilities in terms of the living
Hmm.
and the relationship with the people.
Absolutely.
Give me two of each. What's some of the living
So,
adjustments and what are some of the people relational adjustments?
yeah, so basically, like the what she said in the comment is very true. Like most people are uninformed or misinformed about what's going on over there. That's not to say that what's going on in Africa is all good or it's all great. There is going to be a big adjustment when you come to Africa. The first thing is like the comfortability here. Like you have places where your electricity might cut off every week. You might not have electricity for a day or two out of the week. or we might not have running water, and you might have to go fetch water at a public place, or some places. If you go in the south of Senegal, every house has a well. I remember growing up, before you take a shower, you have to go fetch some water. So these are different things, like, or you might get to a place where there's no paper towel. You're going to go to the store, but you're not going to find no toilet papers. You know what I mean? Because everybody there uses water to clean themselves. So it's some adjustment things. And when we talk about this movement, it's not going to be like, oh, we're going to leave here and come here and it's all going to be all good. No, when we leave here and come here, we have to understand that we're leaving a place of things have made to be comfortable for us, because they don't want us to leave. Our prisons have a bed. We have everything in our prison, so they don't want us to leave. So when we leave the prison, it's less comfortable, but that's the challenge, and that's what's necessary in order for us to build and rebuild. The people who went to Liberia at first, it was messed up. Even how they portray Liberia to us Africans, they make us believe, Liberia is messed up. Don't ever let Americans come. They're going to mess up your countries like they did Liberia. That was a narrative that was being pushed in Africa for a long time. The Marcus Garvey, the Kwame Nkrumah, what he did with Ghana. That's what Rwanda is doing right now. When you go to Rwanda as an African American, as a Black person, like a lot of these countries, when you come there, that should be home. You don't even have to do paperwork for immigration status and stuff. You might apply for a passport for traveling and stuff, but that's home. You just come in and you just have to choose to come. But when you come, you have to understand that you're coming to a land, it's just dirt. You have to build the home. It's going to take us a generation or two to get to the comfortability. But we have to understand that we can do it, because we built America. The reason why America is this comfortable is because our ancestors did it. So if our ancestors did it, we can do it in Africa, because we're the same people. And I look at Africa as today, Africa is still the richest continent on earth today, right? And that's an accomplishment, because they've been stealing from Africa for 1,000 years. They can steal it all. They can, we so rich that they can steal. If somebody can steal from you for 1,000 years, and then you're still the richest person, how much money you had? You know what I'm saying? So we have the resources. We have everything we need today. What they're doing right now is they're making sure that we're not home. We are so scattered, so divided and everything, that we are not home to take care of them. We get home, it's going to be difficult. We might come home and there's no mattress or whatever, but we just have to sweep it and fix it, because we know how to do it. We have to be willing to do the work. That's what I believe.
So, there's a lot of dynamics, right? Does the native African see the African American as an African? And whatever you say, how do we heal that piece?
When you come to Africa, right, in Africa, we have a mentality thing that we need to resolve as well. Like myself, if I go back to Africa today, they're not going to look at me. They're going to look at me like a stranger. Which is weird, right? They're gonna look at me like, when you going back home? Like, I'll be like, I'm home. Like, nah, you're not home anymore. Like, it's just a mentality thing. In Africa, we have this thing where
Africa, they see you as all like being a visitor almost.
Yes, they're gonna see me being a visitor. So now, and when an African American comes, because you're African American, when we see you, we're gonna recognize. Even in here in America, when I see African people, I can tell. I can tell this is from Africa. I don't know how. I can just guess. But when you're in Africa, they can tell you're not from here. They can tell you wasn't born and raised here. They can tell you from maybe America. Most of the time, they will choose America because this is where like another group of Black people are predominantly.
Yeah.
So the African American and the African, once we go back, you know what I mean, and if you stay more than 6 months, you home now. It's just that we don't go to the incubation period. We have to allow them that period. Because we've been gone for so long. They've been over there struggling. We've been over here living our comfortable life. So I give them that.
There's a little bit, so there's a little bit of envy, actually.
Yes, it's not a little bit. It's a lot.
Keep it real.
It's a lot.
Let me ask you this, because our time is dwindling. We have a few more minutes before we have to close out the show. I know it's a long one. I gotta ask you another question.
Yes.
Are you ready?
So I was gonna say it's a lot of that, and that's the reason why, when you go to Africa as an African American and you are a target of some people targeting your money, don't take it too personally. They will do the same thing to me. Sometimes people think that they doing it to me because I'm a foreigner, because I'm American. No, like if I was to come to Africa and I have my money, they will target my money the same way. So it's not a where you from thing. I just wanted to add that in there.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. So let me ask you this, going back to the dynamics between African and African Americans. If you were in a room, right, how would you handle a room of your countrymen and African American men who were at odds? And they were at odds on that level. There was the African American men that were at odds with your countrymen, with Africans, and you're in the room and you're witnessing it. How would you sprinkle love on the situation? How would you dissipate the energy?
Look, I would just let them know, like you see this, like this take precedent over your nationality. I'm from Mauritania. My mom from Senegal, my dad from Mali. We have this in common. You African American, somebody who was born in China, in Japan, in Brazil, in France. This is what you have in common, and this is what is being used to keep us at a different level. Right now, what we fighting about? We're fighting about, what is the root of this fight? You were born in one place and I was born in a whole other place, and we fighting because of that. Land matters and everything. We can be patriots, but does patriotism take precedent over, like we're gonna say race? Like people don't like to use racism, but the definition of racism is to love your color. So in that sense, if you can love your color above your nationality, your land, you can see past those, because I could just think about, okay, what would an African American man and an African man argue about at that level? Like what would cause that?
What would be
because that's what I would attack. I would attack the root cause.
The one thing that always causes some upheaval and some wahala is money. Money stirs up on every level, every nationality, everything. So it could be on some wahala done started over some money. I got another question for you. Really quickly, we're at like 5 minutes before the hour. I want to bring in
you gotta ask your audience, if they will indulge another 10, 15 minutes. Tell them the king is here. This is not a regular show.
Yeah, I love it. So my question is this: what will you sacrifice for your goals and your vision?
Everything. Like I will go back if I see the way, like we have like the Exodus project, we recruited enough minds and we have a plan and it's time to go, and let's say my other half, like I was married to somebody who's not African and who don't share those things, and like I have kids and stuff. I will leave my family and go take care of that, because that's taking care of my family. Right now, I've been in America for 19 years. I've been eligible to become an American citizen since 2006, but I never took it because I like to keep my Mauritanian citizenship, because Mauritania don't really approve dual citizenship, and I'm not willing to lose that for this.
So you would sacrifice. You're not willing to lose your Mauritanian citizenship.
No.
You would sacrifice the life that you live in America.
Yes.
If they said choose, you either get an American passport or a Mauritanian passport, you would choose what?
Mauritanian, and I have. That's been my choice since 2006. Right
Got
now,
it. So
I have a green card.
You would sacrifice the luxury.
Yes.
I
know people who ask me all the time, like, why do you go through this? I'm like, because it's important to me. In 10 years, in 20 years, I would like to go back home and be heavily involved in my country. And I don't want to hear nothing about you gave up your citizenship, you don't belong here no more. I'm just trying to kill all that from the get-go. So
what do you hold bigger than your God and your family?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. That's number one and number two right there.
I wanted to know if there's anything
and then number three comes my people, my Black people. And this is not something that always been. This is something I came to be to this. I came to this like maybe in the past 3-4 years. You know, um, being here for 19 years and realizing that this is me voluntarily slaving in another place. You know, and just not knowing. You come to the realization later,
Yes.
and you know, it's like now that I know what I know and I've experienced what I've experienced in life, my journey and how I came here and everything. Like my people, my black people come third, you
So
know.
it's your God, your family, and your black people.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So at this Mullah, this has been good. This has been really rich. Did you ever answer the question? I think you did. You answered the question, if the African sees the African American as African.
Yeah, I mean, we see the
Because
African sees the African American as African. I'll answer it more directly. We see him, but it's a difference. The difference is like, you know, like the separation. You know, we all Africans, but why y'all over there and we over here? But the question also can be as vice versa. It's like, why y'all like as an African, it's like we only came here because somebody told us that this, you know, you can make lots of money, you can have success here. They sold us the American dream. But this is where this is the crime scene for us. This is where the crime happened. This is where slavery happened. This is the stage of slavery. There is nothing that's going to make us want to come here if it wasn't for that. Now, from the other perspective, in Africa, it's like, okay, why are they still over there in the crime scene? Why are they still staying at the crime scene? Like, that's where the crime happened. Why aren't they coming home? And then he said, not understanding,
so
like,
you're
you
the
know,
African American,
yeah,
you're in the crime scene. Why
yeah.
aren't you coming back?
Why aren't you coming home? Why you feel like the crime scene is home to you now?
Well,
Like
because
you calling the crime scene home? Huh?
there's certain African Americans that feel that this is home. That
Yes.
Africa, they don't know Africa.
Mm-hmm.
They've never seen Africa. When they connect with their African brothers and sisters, they're not embraced. So they don't feel a need to be in Africa, to go to Africa, to have that lineage, to connect at all. That's one of the narratives.
Yeah,
Even
but
for
that's
me,
this. Mhm.
growing up, my family even says, there's this disconnect with
Mhm.
us in Africa where they're like, don't try to think you can just go over there and make life, because
Well,
that's
we
not.
need to change that mentality. Yeah, you know, start to think that you can just go over there and make a life. Because at the end of the day, it's like, you know, like even in a family, you know, if like one of my sisters were kidnapped and they were kidnapped for 10, 20 years and then they come back in, it going to be a disconnect at first. You know, it's going to be something. So that's what they're feeling like. So now with the Africans, it's been like a long time. So of course, when you come, it's gonna be a little disconnect, but we have to work through it. We try, you know, we letting that be an obstacle that stops us. So the
Yeah.
obstacles and the challenges are going to be there. It's not going to be all nice and everything, but we have to try to walk through the challenges so that we can see the light at the end. Because it's right there. It's like it's not even far.
Okay, so look, I'm typing in at this time. If anyone would like to ask a question
Mm-hmm.
or contribute to the conversation, I want to bring it live. We have a few people on here. You've heard what we're talking about. If there's any parts that resonate with you, or if you have a question for Mullah or for me, or just to direct to the stream and the show, please, now is the time to ask any questions. I want to open that up before we conclude.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, right? So the stream is open. I'm gonna give it some time. If you want to add to the stream and any questions you may have.
So
From
while they're doing that,
project.
while they're doing that, while we're giving them time, I'll just let everybody know that you can find me at kingmoulah.com. You know, kingmoulah.com. She's gonna put it up there for you to see.
I am. I'm gonna put it up on the stream. We have a question.
Yeah.
we have a question, and it is from I Am King's daughter.
Oh,
Yes, yes, friends
oh,
in the
trying to
house,
get me
friends
locked
in
in.
the
I
house.
don't know. I like my statue right now, but definitely maybe we'll do the first African bachelor show. Come get with King MOULAH, the most eligible bachelor.
Oh my God. No, we're
Guys,
gonna
can
have
you?
to have you and a couple of other brothers that need some queens
Absolutely,
lined up with you. So, oh wait,
absolutely.
I want to know if Moolah is down for a bachelor show.
Oh yeah,
That
let's
would be
make it
fun.
happen.
Would you be down for that?
Yeah, I would be down for that because,
Okay.
like I said, I'm trying
And
to
are
find
you
my
taking
queen.
all
I,
women?
at this stage, I don't know what to do. Like anything, like let's get some help here. Let's get some help. Help King MOULAH find the queen, the right queen.
I know that's right. And she says, I Am King's artist says, we will find a woman for him through a reality TV show.
Oh yeah, let's make it happen. I'm down.
Yes. So if there's any, this was good. That was a great question. That was a great question. I want to go back, right? I think we're all given red flags. We're given red flags, and we're also given our directions. We're given directions as long as we're paying attention to the signs, right? When I was in Africa and I was going to marry a gentleman there, I too would seek my elders to guide me. So before I married the man, I called up my grandfather because I know for me, I was all in the emotions and in my heart chakra, the feeling of love, right? So I called up my grandfather who was alive at the time, and I wanted to get his blessings and his approval. And he did not give them to me. He did not. He said to me, I just want to just bring this in to the piece since we're talking about the dynamics, right? He said to me that I told him, I said, grandfather, I'm here. I'm in Africa. I've met a wonderful person, a wonderful man, and he takes care of me. He protects me. He does all these things. And my grandfather said to me, he says, number one, that's what he's supposed to do. Number one.
That's right.
Right. So some of the disconnect that we have is not having a father, because I didn't grow up with my dad. I didn't have a constant male in the house. So my grandfather was the closest thing that I had to the male in the house, right? And he was the closest thing to a man's perspective that we as women, we don't get to have. So I am grateful that I had that, right? So he told me, he says, no, I'm not going to talk to him. He says, but what I want you to do is to pay attention. He said, pay attention. He says, I know you're safe and I know you're good because you're riding on the prayers of me right now and on all your ancestors. He says, but you pay attention. So, and on that, he hung up the phone. It was a wrap. It was done. So, and then I looked to the man that, wanted to marry me. And I said, I can't marry you. I didn't get the blessing. I can't marry you. Then let me just tell you one other thing. So then we proceed to Tuba, the Holy Land in Senegal. And in Tuba, we try again to marry, right? Or there was something we were doing. I'm not clear what it was, but we went to Tuba and we waited for an officiate for a minute. And then we went there to this officiate, and the man came and he says, how can I help? And the brother who wants to marry me, he says, I want to marry this woman. And the man who could have done the ceremony, he said, I will marry you if you go and get your big father. And I'm like, big father? He must talking about his dad, his father. So again, we are guided. There was two incidents. One, my grandfather said no.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go to Tuba, and this officiant says no.
No. Mm-hmm.
So now, either we can take our own will, because we all have free will. And this is, I'm speaking to somebody. This story is going for
somebody.
If I had gotten 2 no's, we're guided. If we tend to inject our free will over our signs, then that's on us. We get that. If we choose to fall back and pay attention and listen, we get that too. So I think, right? So we're given our signs.
Yes, and that's how life works.
Or not.
That's how the universe works. It's like really from the time we were born all the way to now, the universe is really has for us, but we tend to always come and take the wheel and drive like, oh no, I'm about to crash, hold on, like, like there is something driving, but that's something also is subject to our free will. We can easily take our free will and take control, but the hardest thing to do is to not use your free will. Like that's the hardest thing to do. Is like you have free will, your hardest thing to do is to not use your free will, because if you don't use your free will most of the time, you get to the right destination. It might take you here and there because we just want a direct line. We don't understand why the bus has to go over there and over there before we get here. And then we just like, and we just try to drive it, and next thing you know, we crash. But every time we try to drive it, we crash. So what you said is, it's just, it's very, like when my dad told me that, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. If he didn't give his blessing, I would not marry, because it's just important. It's that important. And I feel like it's important in every culture. Every culture is like, whenever you go against all these blessings, all that, and you go do whatever you want to do anyways, 9 times out of 10, you end up finding yourself in a situation that, if you don't listen.
And I think as Africans, like I Am King's daughter, she just said, I'm going to put her comment up, but I want to also say to the African Americans, and in some families, like we're close, particularly in a Southern family. It seems to be a little bit more close-ship than in Northern, but yet it does happen still. It does very well still happen. But I will say, I'm going to put up I Am King's daughter here. Her comments is, she says, in Senegal culture, you can't marry a woman without the presence of at least 2 men from her family. We need to interact some of these cultures here in America.
True.
We need to also have 2 men from our line, our lineage, whether that's an uncle, a family friend, somebody that you love and trust, a brother, your brother's brother, a friend of we need to start coming together more as a community. So then maybe it will save us some headaches. It will save us some time, but we have to trust our council, even our elders. We need to go to them. And some elders, true enough, they old fools. Every elder ain't wise. But it's time to choose the elder who is wise. Even if that might be a little hard to find sometimes. It might be a little hard to find, but it's possible. It could be your queen girl that always keep it real with you. We just need to select the council of others.
Exactly. And sometimes the universe brings us together. The universe will bring you, if you don't have anything like that in your family, it might bring you a man or a woman that has a family structure. Like sometimes I see too many people like, well, I never had a family structure, so that's why I can't have a relationship with somebody who had a family structure. And in my mind, I'm like, it should be the opposite. You should look to the person who had the family structure and look at it as a completion because you never had it. So why do 2 people from broken home, like who never had a family structure, how would they make a family?
Because there's no example.
Yeah, somebody has to know how to do it.
That's a great point. So again, to that point, I want to stress and suggest that we as African Americans inject some cultural traditions when we come together with men and with women, that we introduce them to our families. We pray about it. We ask for counsel, for guidance. good counsel and good guidance, right? Because that could also play a hand. You get elders who are hating too, who are envious too. So I guess we need to find those people in our lives. Everybody got at least one person that really and truly have your best interest in mind, whether that's a friend or an elder, right? Or
the thing also one thing I noticed in America, it's not easy to find elders. Like in our culture, we don't have like nursing homes, so old people are literally they don't have no job, so they're literally outside everywhere. It's not hard to find an old person, and old people will give you an advice even if they don't know you. Here I noticed that there is the disconnect between young and old. Old people are shun aside. All people, they put aside. It's like they try to get them in nursing homes, or once you 60, 70, if you're 70, you're definitely not part of the society anymore. You know what I mean?
Well,
75.
the new 70 looks a little different, Moolah. The new 70 is a little bit still more snappy. They still got it going on. Now, you talk about 90s, 80s, 90s, yeah, but the 70-year-old American woman.
90, if we live to 90 is a blessing. Like, you know how hard it is to find somebody who's 90 years old? So we need to look at the people who are 70 as our oldest, because they might not make it to 90.
That's true.
So in Africa, 65 over here, because over here they made like 65 is even over there is like 60, 62 the retirement age. But over there, once you hit retirement, you're old, you're elder. You get that respect. People listen to you. From 65 and up. You might not see 90. If you're gonna wait till you see 80 or 90, well, you might die. So we might not have anything from
you. My great aunt, she's still alive. She was born in 1912. She's 93.
Nice.
She is still here. She is the first child and the last child living.
Nice.
93 years old. She is suffering with Alzheimer dementia. But she's very still alert, and she remembers old things.
Exactly.
She is still alive.
Yeah, so, but when you get to 90, yeah, go ahead.
I want to bring in Miss Alicia. She has also said, I'm here for imparting cultural traditions into our relationship building. Even if you didn't grow up with it, find it. So just kind of like what we said, if we don't have the traditions in place, we got to kind of maybe create them for ourselves. And I think this conversation that we're having today is a part of creating culture, traditions, trying to put things for ourselves, and for us to continue to grow as a people, and not omitting those who have our best interest in mind. Whether if you don't have the melanin, but you have our best interest in mind, and you're on board for the goodness and the upliftment, we welcome you, right? That's just that. Moolah, tell everybody it's an hour and 15 minutes. We gotta go. Tell everyone where to find you, please, again. And thank you, everyone on the comment stream that has chimed in. Don't go yet. We have 5 more minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And next time you have me on, I want to talk about Kwanzaa. I want you to tell me about it. Okay?
Okay.
All right, because people ask me if I celebrate it because I'm African, but I never heard of it till I came here.
It's not an African tradition. It's an African American tradition.
But I would like to understand it. I would like for somebody to explain it to me, let me know where it's coming from, where the elements come from, what is it? The tradition.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like, we here to learn from each other, and that's one thing I would like to learn from you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you can find me at kingmoulah.com. Moulah is spelled MOULAH, kingmoulah.com. And that's also my handle on all social medias, King Moulah on IG, King Moulah on Facebook, King Moulah on Twitter. And you can find our Exodus project on YouTube under I Am King's Daughter Good TV, or you can just type in the Exodus Project podcast. We should come up. And my music, I have a new project that I've just released yesterday. It's an album called Long Live the Kings. And on the cover, you'll see me and King Moullah on it, and it's 20 songs. I hope you enjoy them. You can stream, listen, support. I'll have some merch soon. Soul box is going to be available and other things. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Moolah, for being here. I really appreciate your input on the subject. We will have you back for sure. Hey, hang out backstage before you go, okay?
Absolutely,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much.
Thank you.
So that was some goodness, some good talk and some goodness. Just to wrap up, right? Our health tip. So we don't only speak about the problem, but we also render a solution. The health tip for this week is to offer a smile or a kind word to someone who looks like you and or to someone who doesn't look like you. You know, being a humanitarian serves up blessings and grace from the divine, whatever you want to call that spirit that serves out blessings. When we're humanitarian, I think we are in alignment with that grace. So even though we're in an era of mask, what I found is that when you smile, you can tell someone's smiling by their eyes. So yes, nowadays we're having to look into one another's eyes more than we've ever had to look before. So, but if you do the experiment in your life throughout your days of being alive on this planet while we're having to wear masks, you can see when someone's smiling through their eyes. So that us offering up a smile, even if it's a smile through our eyes, please give it to someone today. What inspired me to do this edition of Power in My Pivot was the transparency that I witnessed on I Am Clean's Daughter TV with Moolah and Morena, right? When they were talking about the Exodus Project, it was another form of information and there was another perspective on the other end that I never even was privy to. I'm never really privy to the African in France, or the African in England, or the African in the UK, or the African in Africa, or even the African in America. But now it's time for us to bridge relationships, to make friendships here and abroad. And when I saw the podcast with them, the honesty and the transparency that they came with fueled this interview. And it fueled the honesty that I want to be a change agent for through this dialogue, right? So this is all about change and honesty and being true to ourselves and our callings. So that is what fueled this edition of Power in My Pivot. Power in My Pivot happens every single Saturday. It is a live broadcast at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Central Time, and 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Kings and queens, let's pivot from being basic to bona fide. And remember, nobody is better than you, and you are no better than nobody. Said to me by a great wise man, my grandfather. Keep in mind and always know that there is power in your pivot. Until next time, I will see you soon. This is Corinthia Peoples with Power in My Pivot.